some load carrying to do with a Volvo, so I've bought myself a set of second-hand Volvo roof rails. The trouble is, I don't know how to mount them.
Hey, Tigger!
Now there's supposed to be pre-drilled holes in this little gutter run here that these bolts will go through. But I can't see any pre-drilled holes. Well, that wouldn't be such a problem. I can drill holes for myself. But before I can drill holes, I need to remove the headlining. So, the headlining's got to come out. Wow, that's going to be fun. You can see I've started already. I've taken out the centre lighting strip there, and I've started to remove the sun visors. I've then got to remove the grab rails. There's a little coat hook thing there. I don't think that needs to come off. I think that can stay where it is. There's a fastener at the centre there. There's the light fitting at the centre there. There's a couple of hooks toward the back, and I believe it slots into that panel. So, lots to do. There are these little plastic kind of dowel things as well in the centre there. I assume I'm going to have to drill holes for them to go in. Also, I'm going to have to make sure I get my measurements right about exactly where they're located. This is of course on the assumption that there aren't pre-drilled holes. It is possible that the holes are there, but they're just covered up by a seam seal. That feels like metal, so it may be soldered, it's hard to tell. Or it may just be some sort of polymer seam seal. If it's a seam seal, I should be able to drill through it from the inside, and that would be much better because it would give me a more accurate location. This little centre lighting unit is just pressed into place. I use some of the plastic tools to pry it away. You can see there are these little clips here. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of them. And there's some little locating pillars which make sure that it stays centered into the position it needs to go in, because this is the electrical connector which needs to go in to there. So it's got to make sure that it is properly centered. As I say, I just used some plastic tools just to pull it off. That was straightforward enough. Moving on to the sun visor, 2 little plastic covers. You have to swing the visor out of the way, which fortunately just clips onto that end. That's no worries there. And once you've got the covers off, rather strangely, you've got one crosshead and one 8mm hex head that hold it. Why they're 2 different ones, I don't know. But anyway, I've got to take that screw out next. Then I'll take the one off the other side, and then we'll start on these grab rails. Grab rails, little plastic covers behind them. Now, I can't do this one-handed, so I'll just show you them first. Then we'll get these covers off. But the trouble is, this thing springs back into place, which is going to close those covers. So you've got to hold this open while you open those covers, because if you let it go, it's going to push those covers closed again. Another thing I should mention here is that my plastic tool wasn't strong enough to lever this out, so I'm using a very small but long shafted flathead screwdriver, which works nicely to pluck those out. As you can see, I opened this one already, but the levers closed it again, as I thought it would. And we've got these 8mm hex head bolts to come out. Oh, here's a handy little tip. these covers actually clip in to a little shelf there, and that one, well, it's not working for both of them. That one's got too big a clearance, but that one is actually holding it open at the moment, which will allow me to get the tool in to get these bolts out. Right, having released the bolts from this centre section, so this is now free from the ceiling, I still can't pull this down, and what I've discovered is there's little clips, plastic clips on these retainers that are securing it to the ceiling. I managed to get the one off that side. That's the clip there. I'm now going to try and pull the one off this side, which it should come straight down, but it's really hard to get under it. I'm using the plastic tool. See what I mean? It's really quite difficult to get underneath it. Oh, there we go. There we go. Pull that out. Put that on the dash for now. This now should just pull free from the ceiling. If I can find somewhere to grip hold of. There we go. Blang! There we go. Right. This is now all loose. Okay, so I should be able to reach up into these corners now. Wherever they are. Where are they? Right behind this tube, I'll bet you. Now this piece of strange foam tubing here is actually the airbag. I think what I want is right behind there. There's a large plastic flat panel that clips onto the roof. It is all clip-on apart from one centre bolt. You've got to remove the light fitting, which is just clipped into place. You lever it down at one end. There's a little slot there at one end to act as a lever point. You can get that light fitting out, which actually goes that way round. You can then reach into the 8mm hex-headed bolt, and this then drops down. The two rear quarter panels are all just clip in place, so that's them off. That's the long section panel on. I've just stuck the bolt back into there for now, and this end is all but loose. So I'm now moving on to these rear hooks, and if I can get under there, there is a 12mm hex-headed bolt in there, and on the other side of course, and that just leaves the grab handles I think to remove. Oh, that being said, I've got to remove the bolts from these pillar covers because they're clamping down onto the headliner, so I'm going to have to be able to move the covers out a little bit to allow the headliner to come down. God, it feels like I'm taking the whole car apart. Right, turns out I'm wrong. But this bolt is not a 12 but a 13, and it's quite tough. It's pretty strong. Jeez! I know I'm not in the best position for... Oh! Wow! I thought I was going to damage the head there, the sort of twist I put on it. Oh, I think we've got thread lock on here as well. You'll see I've started to take the seal out of the doorway here because it also grabs onto the headliner. These Torx bolts that secure the covers is T25. And thankfully aren't too tight. Now my interest here may not be in taking the cover all the way off. If I can just get it out enough so that I can see the fittings, actually that might be more of a problem than I thought. Right, I'm going to pull this bolster out the way. I've managed to pull the headline in over the top. That will do just nicely. This is going to be really difficult to see. But up there is a hole. And that hole does appear to go up where the mounting should come through. I'm going to try and see if maybe I can poke something like a screwdriver up through there to see if that's just the sealant that's holding it. That's interesting. The hole, tapping the screwdriver against it, so the hole appears to come out around here. Not in the gutter as I suspected. Let's have a look at the ones at the back, see if we can have a view of them too. There, that's the sort of thing we're looking at. These appear to be the two positions for the rear. And you can see that centre hole along with it. So yes, I wonder if I should drill through from this side. This appears to be as if it's going to be the easiest one of the three mounting points to do, because I should be able to drill through that without much problem. The centre one's much harder to get at, and the front one as well. Okay, let's see what we can do. Right, I'm thinking that seeing as these holes are actually the easiest to get to, perhaps it might be easier if I drilled those out first, because then, having drilled those out, I can then use this as a marking point to give me the distance from there to the next hole. I can measure the distance in that these holes will be centred and use that as a guide to where that should be to drill that one. And again, following on with the holes to this one. I may be off slightly, but so long as I get them roughly in line. But it's going to be easier to drill through from the top than it is to try and drill through from the bottom. But drilling through from the bottom here is going to be the easiest. That's what I think I'm going to try and do. I'm trying to drill up into here. This is getting in my way. I've managed to pull that wire into one side, but I can't really pull that down much more. It's still supported on that side, and it's still supported by the pillars in the middle. So I think what I'm going to have to do is uncouple it from this side to allow me to lower that down more, to give me room to get the drill in. The other thing that bothers me is trying to centralise the holes. There's a sheet of metal with a larger hole, and then there is a plate against the outer skin which has a smaller hole in it, and I want to hit bang in the centre of that. The first hole is drilled. I was trying to chamfer the rough edges and I actually drilled through a slightly larger hole, which was a bit silly of me, but never mind. I'm now going to mark up and ready for the second hole. But I notice when I try and hold this up in line, see if I can do it now. But actually one is slightly further back than the other. So I'm going to have to be careful where I drill that second hole, I think. Anyway, let's crack on. Let's make it happen. I'm going to centre punch that hole and then we'll drill that one through. Okay, we'll drill in from the outside. Seems to have worked okay. Right up until we get to the front, where, I don't know if you can see it, but actually we're slightly out of line with the bracket below. So I think what I'm going to have to do is drill through the bracket below a little bit, but it does line up with all the studs. So yeah, let's muddy fighter suit, shall we? I've got to clean up all this shrapnel as well that's everywhere. Little metal shards. Shards? What's a shard? Okay, it seems to have gone into place quite well. I'm a little bit concerned about a couple of things. For instance, oh, it's hard to see there. Let's try there. There's a step in the rubber there that doesn't match up with the roof. And at both ends, both front and rear, while the step at that end doesn't line up with the roof, the step at this end does, which is a bit weird. Why would that be at an angle? And of course, as always, I managed to drop one nut up in here and I cannot recover it. I put a second one on there, but it means I'm now one short, so at the front I've only mounted one at the moment. Well, that's it fitted. I'm not very happy with it. You'll notice that these bars are right at the end on both sides, whereas these bars have a slight overhang, which shows that the roof rails are narrower at the back than they are at the front. The bars are actually exactly the same length, so yeah. And if that wasn't enough to be upset about, the gap under the rubbers, a little bit blurry, I apologise for that. There are gaps under the rubbers that are going to allow rain in, and that rain is going to leak in through the drilled holes and allow water into the car. Anyway, we have roof rails on the car.